Boy, it's an honor to be a part of the inaugural recovery marathon and to be involved in a program around the 12 steps. I got sober in 12-step recovery. And by the way, just 2 days ago, celebrated my 1 year anniversary of sobriety from alcohol. So I've gained a continuing benefit from my association with the 12-step world. Uh, okay, so step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to, well, alcoholics is the language of the original 12 steps. My program where I got sober, we said sex addicts. We tried to carry this message to others, I think is another way to put it, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So that step 12 really has three parts: spiritual awakening, service to others, and then daily practices. It was a big surprise to me that I experienced a spiritual awakening in 12-step recovery because I was a Christian when I came into the rooms. I'd grown up in church. I had a master's degree in God. I really thought that that I had all the answers. In fact, I told myself early on that I was probably sent there as a missionary. I didn't think I had anything to learn spiritually, nothing to gain. But man, did that experience totally revolutionize it really resuscitated my spiritual life. Because the truth is, when I first walked into those rooms, although I was a faithful attender in church, by that point, I was mostly going through the motions. And I was, for all practical purposes, and a practicing atheist because God was not present in my life when I left the church building. Boy, did God become more real to me. And I think it's because he became more real to me as I became more real. I was now in a place where I could bring my real self and say the real truth. Yes, when I first entered those rooms, I was well known, but nobody knew me. And the truth is, I really didn't know myself. But the practice of the 12 steps, I I was able to come out of hiding. And now when I approached God, I didn't have to approach him with my religious persona, doing my best to be the person I thought he would accept. Now, secure in the knowledge that he loves me, knows me completely, and loves me without reservation, and I do not have to hide or pretend to be anything other than I am. Well, he became a whole lot more real. And there really was, I really did experience a spiritual awakening. Now, the middle part of the step is having experienced, so we say, having experienced a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others. Well, I made the mistake. I was warned not to do it, and I disregarded the warnings. I jumped straight from step 1 to step 12. The alcoholics actually have a term for it. It's called two-stepping. It's those of us who get all excited about the concepts that we have not put into practice. We haven't done the work, but we've read the book, which I did. I mean, I read the big book within the first week and thought, because I, on a cognitive level, kind of understood the material, that I had somehow incorporated it. And I was selling recovery before I owned it. I was pushing it on my wife. I was warned not to do that. I disregarded the warnings, and in so doing, probably delayed her entrance into recovery because I had, having really done no self-examination. I hadn't owned my shit. I hadn't certainly made any amends. I didn't have any credibility with Allie when I started, or with some of those who I was preaching to. Before we can help others, we do have to do the work ourselves. It is true that self-centeredness is at the root of our problem. I remember there is one story that hit me very hard, very early. It was my second sponsor. I went through a series of sponsors early. My second sponsor, who was a high-powered businessman, now with some years of sobriety. And he told me this story. He said one day he called his sponsor because he was under a cloud of obsession. He was just, the urge was so strong. He was on the verge of acting out. And he said, "You got to help me because I am going to go do something I know I'm going to regret." Now, this guy had a great public persona. He was a very good public speaker. He was the kind of guy who could attract a crowd. This is what his sponsor told him to do. He said, get some garbage bags and go over to the Walmart and pick up all the trash on Walmart's property. And put it in your car and take it to the dump. And don't talk to anybody. Now, that seemed like the craziest piece of instruction. But it worked for my sponsor. And he said it worked for this way. For this reason, he said, I was there to serve others, but not to get any attention or any applause for it. It was an act of pure service. I had nothing to gain from picking up trash at Walmart. It was his first act of service. Now, when he agreed to be my sponsor, that was another act of service. I didn't appreciate how much of a sacrifice he was making until on down the line, I became a sponsor myself. I did find that agreeing now to become a Silas or a sponsor is like the third stage of a three-stage rocket. Stage one is that admission that we're powerless when we walk through the door. That gets us off the launching pad. Stage two is when we're doing those steps, 2 through 11, that get us, allow us to escape the gravitational pull of that addiction. But stage three, the one that puts us into orbit, is when we agree to care for somebody else, to get out of our own obsession with our own recovery and our own work and listen to and care about and help somebody else. It's amazing to me what that stage three experience brought. It was I was 3 years in before I became a sponsor to anybody, 3.5 years. And it was that long really before I was ready because I dragged my feet so long. But service really is key to long-term sobriety. Here's what I know about my sobriety. It's a marvelous gift. I'm so treasure the freedom I have today, but I recognize it's a fragile freedom. I asked God for a lifetime supply of it, and he refused shipment. He only sends it a day at a time. I've got to be humble enough every day to go out and pick it up like manna. But here's the thing. I protect it with boundaries and with brothers. I keep it by giving it away. And it's why I still, now, I have made the mistake. Here's another mistake. I'm going to give you one more warning about service to others. Well, in Samson, we have a term, somebody who tries to substitute caring for others for self-care. We call that Silasitis. There was a period early on when I was Silas to 16 guys, 4 more than Jesus. And I wound up face planted. I just had an ugly relapse. And it was because I was trying to be too big, too much, and I was neglecting self-care. I now have a limit. I'm Silas to 5 guys. That's it. I will help others. I will be temporary Silas to others. I'm temporary Silas to a couple guys right now. But I know that my limitation is 5 guys. So we serve others, but we do it from a right-sized place. We keep it by giving it away. And then the last part of step 12 is we practice these principles in all our affairs. And that's the beautiful thing about recovery. It really does leak into all of life. It makes us better equipped as human beings now to function with humility in the world, to become right-sized, to develop a greater capacity for empathy, and to learn really to be just a member of the human race, another bozo on the bus, uh, a, a member, a functioning member of the body of Christ. So that's it. Step 12. Think about that, ruminate on that as you do the final lap in whatever it is you're doing today. Thanks, brothers.